don't go believing anything I say. No, don't go believing me. Don't listen to me. Don't take any notice. Don't listen to anything that I say. Thank you.
I'm joined by Health Secretary Sajid Javid. Good morning, Health Secretary.
Good morning.
What do we know this morning about the spread of Omicron?
But the truth is, we still don't know enough.
What comes to mind when you think of magic mushrooms? Well, for lots of people, this hallucinogenic drug is associated with psychedelic trips or hippies or just plain old partying. But here's something that might surprise you.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Psilocybin, which is the hallucinogen found in mushrooms, has been found to relieve symptoms in people with hard-to-treat depression. And now,
COVID-19, the Great Reset.
one Israeli company is on a mission to make psychedelics a natural part of every doctor's treatment plan.
And there's gaps in the data that we have. There are significant uncertainties.
OK, let me ask you about a question that actually my son put to me, and I didn't know the answer, but you're much cleverer than me, so you will know. If you test positive for COVID, and then every day you have a lateral flow test that you register that's positive until the infection's gone through your body, every day that that's registered, is that registered as a different case?
No, it shouldn't be, because it should attach to you. But the truth is, I'd have to look at the methodology that they use. But I would have thought that that should attract to you because you register it under your name.
Yeah, so it could, in theory, be 10 times higher than the actual figures. So, but you don't think that's the case?
Look, it's a very good methodological question, as usual. I would want to just defer to what DHSC say about the way that they count, but it doesn't seem right that that would be counted for the obvious reasons.
But we must work with the data that we've got and not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So let me just share with you very quickly what we do know, and we know that case numbers and infections are doubling at around 2 to 3 times every 2 to 3 days.
Every day that that's registered, is that registered as a different case?
But we don't know enough about the severity of Omicron. And so there is data from South Africa, when you look at their hospitalization rate versus Delta, definitely suggests they got a lower hospitalization rate. 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 But we don't know whether if that means the virus itself is intrinsically less severe, or does it mean that South Africans have more protection through natural infection. More protection through natural infection. More protection through natural infection.
In Africa, for example, just 6.6% of the population have been vaccinated.
Or vaccines, or in other ways.
In Africa, for example, just 6.6% of the population have been vaccinated.
Or in other ways, or in other ways, or in other ways.
Ibogaine has a very unique story. It comes from a tree that grows in Central Africa. The local people, for many years, they know how to take the root bark from these trees and produce from them a stimulant, drug, and antidepressant, basically treatment.
Well, so let's to be clear about this. You said reported number of infections about 90,000. Not infections, that's case numbers. And the difference between a case and an infection is cases are a subset of infections. That's where someone was feeling unwell, they've got a test, and it's been confirmed. So the 90,000, by the way, isn't just Omicron. That is Delta, still predominantly Delta. Someone was feeling unwell, they've got a test, and it's been confirmed. And with about a significant degree of that being Omicron. Still predominantly Delta, a significant degree of that being Omicron. Still predominantly Delta. Typically, the case numbers represent around a fifth or a quarter of total infections at any one time. And so with Omicron, we know that the infections that the cases that we're getting, the confirmed cases, it will be a subset of total infections. But because of the speed at which it's growing, doubling every 2 to 3 days, it's likely to be an even smaller proportion, the cases, of total infections. So it's hard to say with any kind of certainty what's the total number of infections, but we know from all this data that they are growing significantly in the community. We know from a test called S-gene target failure, which is basically a proxy test for Omicron. It's a lot quicker doing that than the sequencing. It's a lot quicker doing that than the sequencing. It's a lot quicker doing that than the sequencing.
Every day that that's registered, is that registered as a different case?
Doesn't anyone notice this?
We know that it's currently running at around 60% of all cases, all new cases in England overall.
What do we know about the proportion of people who remain unvaccinated?
Well, we know, first of all, in terms of numbers, about 88%.
Doesn't anyone notice this?
Of the population over the age of 12 have taken at least one vaccine, and 80% have taken 2. Over half the people of adults are now boosted. So that's really good in terms of great set of numbers, especially the boosters, the biggest booster program in Europe. There's about, let's say, around 10% of the population that remain unvaccinated.
So you think you're going to live your life alone, in darkness, in seclusion?
And we know in hospital, when you look at hospitalizations, they make up a disproportionate amount of those that are severely ill. In fact, if we look at those that are the most ill in hospital, needing the most care and attention...
Yeah, I know. You've been out there and tried to mix with the animals.
Around 9 out of 10 of them are unvaccinated.
ITV's favourite doctor came out with this last Monday on the Lorraine show.
Those people who haven't been vaccinated, we'd really love you to think again and be vaccinated, because 90% of people in hospital, 90% of people in hospital are unvaccinated right now with COVID.
That's a really figure that we have to really concentrate on. 90% of people in hospital have not been vaccinated.
90% un-you-know-whatted in hospital is a really figure, according to this incoherent Scottish woman. Really figure is apparently newspeak for false figure. These were the most recent government figures available when he said that last Monday, which came out on the 2nd of December. Patients who went to emergency care and stayed at least one night, those are the relevant columns, so adding that lot up, we get the un-you-know-whatted 37% and the you-know-whatted 63%.
And I just cannot emphasise enough the impact that they are having.
We get the un-you-know-whatted.
Around 9 out of 10 of them.
37%.
90% of people in hospital.
37%.
Around 9 out of 10 of them.
90% of people in hospital.
37%.
On the rest of society. They must really think about the damage they are doing to society by they take up hospital beds.
37%.
No, what? 'Cause I'm a liar!
That could have been used for someone with maybe a heart problem, or maybe someone who's waiting for their elective surgery.
I'm a liar! Yeah, I'm a liar!
But instead of protecting themselves and protecting their community, they choose not to get vaccinated. They are really having a damaging impact, and I just can't stress enough, please.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Do come forward and get vaccinated. It's a really positive thing to do. It's a really positive thing to do. A significant degree of that being Omicron. It's still predominantly Delta. It's a really positive thing to do, not just for yourself, for your loved ones, but for your community too.
Not the day.
Emerging evidence from South Africa is that Omicron might be less severe.
It might be.
Than we might be.
Yeah.
But you've chosen to act as though it is at least as severe as Delta, so that you are actually choosing the evidence to which you're responding, rather than looking at the range of evidence you're being offered by scientists.
No, Trevor, if I may, I don't think that's the case at all.
Graham Medley...
Well, no, but
let me just put this to you.
Okay.
The Graham Medley, who's the chairman of the SAGE Modelling Committee, told The Spectator yesterday, we generally model what we are asked to model.
Let's put to one side then what's happening in South Africa.
And let me explain. Is that it would be wrong absolutely wrong for government to just to say, look, we think this is as severe and that's how we're going to behave, because we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty around Omicron, and we have to accept that. There are gaps in the data, as I've said, but we have to use the data that we've got.
Let's put to one side then what's happening in South Africa.
But we have to use the data that we've got. The data that we do have is around how fast it is growing and about the vaccines.
Health Secretary, is the data you asked for. There is a dialogue in which policy teams discuss with the modellers what they need to inform their policy.
Let's put to one side then what's happening in South Africa.
What is that supposed to mean if it doesn't mean that they're giving you the evidence that you want?
The mischievous media reporting.
I think what it means is that they, as in this case, I think he must be referring to SAGE, which are the government's sort of scientific advisors.
The mischievous media reporting.
Is that what they are modelling is the question they would have been asked, broadly put, is taking into account all the data you have both from the UK and abroad on this new variant.
Let's put to one side then what's happening in South Africa.
But we have to use the data that we've got. Where do you think it's heading? I think that's the broad question. And they inevitably and perfectly understandably would come up with a number of assumptions that they would make.
The mischievous media reporting.
Reports suggesting 10 ministers are questioning the scientific advice.
But as I've said, our job as ministers then is to obviously to look at that report. It is very sobering when you look at it, but to look at it and then to challenge, to sensibly challenge underlying assumptions. And we know that case numbers and infections are doubling at around 2 to 3 times every 2 to 3 days. To challenge, to sensibly challenge underlying assumptions.
But if the report only tells you what you want to hear, there's not much challenge involved there, is it?
Well, it's not.
He's saying that we tell the government the things that it's asking us for. We're not telling them the things that other things that we might know that they're not asking.
Well, asking in the sense, I think what he means is that asking in the sense that the government's request is tell us what you think.
There's a difference between COBRA and COVID-0. The mischievous media reporting.
The data suggests about where this thing is heading.
No. One of the problems with ibogaine that comes from, or anything that comes from the nature, from botanical source, is that it's very difficult to get it the same again and again and again. Is that it's very difficult to get it the same again and again and again. So we specialize in this process, and we can produce in bioreactors both psilocybin and ibogaine.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
In a very reproducible way. And also it helps to regulate the drug.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Because the FDA, yes, the FDA doesn't like, each time that the drug is going to be different. Each time that the drug is going to be different.
It is, if it was something that I was asking for, of course, what I'd be asking, who would want to ask for an outcome like the one that they're suddenly currently presenting?
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Not today.
My job is to challenge that, and that is what the government is doing, and I think it's the appropriate thing to do. There are some people, I say, Trevor, there's some people out there that think that lockdown is the answer to any new challenge we face. There are others that think that you shouldn't do anything at all, and my job, the government's job, is actually to look at the data, to make the best assessment we possibly can and act on that.
All right, let's come to what you actually have to do.
The PM has been very clear that if there were changes in the regulations, that would require a decision of Parliament.
OK, that's a good, complete, comprehensive picture. Just one small detail. You are almost certainly going to have to ask people to undertake or endure new restrictions. And it's being reported that there is a plan, or there are plans being drawn up for a circuit breaker lockdown.
For their rituals.
Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to update you quickly on the latest COVID situation. So what I can say tonight is that naturally we can't rule out any further measures after Christmas, and we're going to keep a constant eye on the data. The impact of the vaccine rollout and the boosters. We don't think today drop everything to keep protecting yourselves and your loved ones, especially the vulnerable. Thank you very much, and happy Christmas.
Health Secretary, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
That's all, folks.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!